Close your eyes for a second and imagine the last thing you'd ever see. Not darkness, not a hospital ceiling. A rust-colored sky, silence so complete it has weight, and a horizon that stretches 400 million kilometers from the nearest human being who isn't standing right next to you. That's what the first person to walk on Mars will see. And there's a decent chance they won't make it home. So why are we going anyway? Here's something nobody tells you about space travel. The moon? We conquered that. 12 human beings have walked on it. 6 missions. The last one landed in 1972. And the whole thing, from Kennedy's speech to Neil Armstrong's boot-touching lunar dust, took just 7 years. 7 years! That's nothing! So why, more than 50 years later, has no human being come within 100 million kilometers of Mars? The answer isn't technology. It isn't funding. It isn't political will. It's geometry. The moon sits about 384,000 kilometers from Earth. That's roughly a 3-day trip in a spacecraft. Close enough that if something goes catastrophically wrong, and in early Apollo missions things nearly did, Houston could react, improvise, and potentially save the crew. Mars doesn't give you that luxury. At its closest point, a window that only opens once every 26 months, Mars is still 56 million kilometers away. That's 140 times farther than the moon, and that's on a good day. When Earth and Mars are on opposite sides of the sun, that gap balloons to 400 million kilometers. Let me make this real for you. If you could drive to the moon in a car at highway speeds, it would take about 6 months. Doable. Annoying, but doable. Driving to Mars at that same speed? That's 177 years. Your great-great-great-grandchildren wouldn't live to see you arrive. So yeah, distance is the enemy. But distance isn't even the scariest part. Let's talk about what actually happens to a human body on a 7 to 9 month voyage through deep space. First, there's radiation. On Earth, our atmosphere and magnetic field act like an invisible suit of armor. They absorb and deflect the constant particle storm blasting out of the sun. On the International Space Station, astronauts still get some protection from Earth's magnetic field. They receive roughly the radiation equivalent of a chest X-ray every single day. Beyond Earth's magnetic field, on the way to Mars, that protection disappears. Astronauts on a Mars mission would absorb enough radiation to raise their lifetime cancer risk by a meaningful, measurable percentage, and that's before a single solar flare. One major flare event without adequate shielding could deliver a lethal dose in hours. Then there's what happens to your body without gravity. In microgravity, your heart weakens because it doesn't have to work as hard. Your bones lose density at a rate of roughly 1 to 2% per month. Your vision can permanently deteriorate as cerebrospinal fluid shifts toward your skull. Muscles atrophy. The immune system gets weird, and that's before you consider the psychological dimension. Imagine being sealed in a space roughly the size of a large camper van with 3 other people for 9 months. With no privacy, no fresh air, no ability to go for a walk or escape. The closest human being outside your ship is tens of millions of kilometers away. If you have a psychological breakdown, there is no evacuation. In 2023, studies looking at deep space mission simulations found that isolation and confinement alone, with no other stressors, produce significant impacts on crew cognitive performance and interpersonal conflict within 60 days. Now extend that to 270. One more thing. If something breaks, an oxygen recycler, a water filtration system, a navigation sensor, the round-trip time for a radio signal to Earth and back is between 8 and 44 minutes, depending on orbital positions. There is no calling for help. There is no rescue mission. The crew solves it, or they don't. This is why Mars is not the moon. This is why half of all uncrewed missions to Mars have failed. 50%. Robots, with no psychological fragility, no bodily deterioration, no human error, and they still fail half the time. What Elon Musk said in a rare moment of candor is worth sitting with. Honestly, a bunch of people will probably die in the beginning. And he's still trying to go, so what does the actual roadmap look like? Not the optimistic headlines, the real one. NASA's strategy is built around one core insight. You don't climb Everest by starting at base camp the day of the summit attempt. You build up, you acclimatize, you pre-position supplies. That's exactly what the Artemis program is. Most people think Artemis is about going back to the moon. It is, but that's not the point. The moon is the training ground. The moon is where we stress test every system, every technology, every psychological protocol we'll need before we even think about pointing a spacecraft at Mars. In November 2022, NASA launched its most powerful rocket since the Saturn V, the Space Launch System. The uncrewed Orion capsule traveled 450,000 kilometers, orbited the moon, and came home. No crew, no landing, but a perfect proof of concept. Next comes a crewed lunar flyby, then a landing, then a permanent station in lunar orbit, the Gateway, which will serve as humanity's first deep space outpost, and eventually the launch point for Mars. Here's why launching from lunar orbit matters so much. Getting off Earth requires punching through one of the most powerful gravitational fields in the solar system. It takes an enormous rocket just to get a modest payload into Earth orbit, to go to Mars from Earth with everything you'd need: habitat, food, fuel, medical equipment. The rocket would have to be almost incomprehensibly large, but from lunar orbit, you're already free of Earth's gravity. The math changes completely. It's the difference between trying to throw a baseball across a city from the ground versus throwing it from a rooftop. Same arm, much better result. Now, and this is where it gets genuinely fascinating, NASA isn't just planning to send astronauts to Mars. They're planning to pre-position Mars before anyone arrives. Years before the first crewed mission, cargo ships will deliver nuclear power systems to the Martian surface, not solar panels, nuclear reactors. Because Mars has dust storms that can blanket the entire planet for months, blocking out sunlight. During the 2018 global dust storm, NASA's solar-powered Opportunity rover went dark permanently. Nuclear power doesn't care about dust storms. Those pre-positioned reactors will power a fuel production plant because the crew's return fuel will be made on Mars, not carried from Earth. It will power a water extraction facility pulling ice from beneath the Martian soil, and it will power life support systems that will be waiting, running, and tested before a single human foot touches the surface. The crew arrives to a base that is already alive. Then comes the Mars Ascent Vehicle, a rocket pre-landed on the surface, already fueled and ready. The crew descends, explores, collects samples, and when the window opens, they climb back into orbit and begin the long journey home. The whole first surface mission, roughly 30 to 90 days on Mars, with a round trip of somewhere between 500 and 700 days total. And if everything goes to plan, which in spaceflight it rarely does exactly, the target date sits somewhere around 2039. But here's what makes this different from every other Mars plan in history. For decades, Mars missions were PowerPoint dreams, bold concepts that lived in conference rooms and press releases and died when the budget cycle changed. What's different now is this: for the first time in history, multiple entities, not just governments, but private companies with their own rockets, their own timelines, their own financial incentives, are racing toward the same destination. SpaceX is building Starship, the most powerful launch vehicle ever constructed, with the explicit stated purpose of making humanity multiplanetary. It's already had successful integrated test flights. It's being iterated on at a pace that would have been unimaginable in the Apollo era. This competitive pressure matters. It's what compressed what would have been a 20-year government timeline into something that might actually happen in 15. And there's a philosophical dimension here that deserves a moment. In the entire 4.5 billion year history of this planet, life has never, not once, existed anywhere other than Earth. Every dinosaur, every bacterium, every human civilization, every piece of music ever written, every war ever fought, every child ever born, all of it has happened on one fragile rock, orbiting one ordinary star. If an asteroid hit tomorrow, or a supervolcano, or something we haven't thought of, that's it. The experiment ends. Life gets one shot, and it misses. Mars changes that equation, not because Mars is comfortable, it isn't, Not because the journey is safe, it won't be, but because for the first time in the history of biology itself, life will exist in two places. And once that happens, we become something the universe has never produced before, something that cannot be erased by a single catastrophe. Picture the first crew stepping out onto the Martian surface. They've been in a spacecraft for 9 months. They've watched Earth shrink into a blue dot, then disappear entirely. They've seen nothing but black for so long that it starts to feel like the absence of space rather than the presence of it. And then the hatch opens. The sky above them is not the deep blue of Earth or the ink black of orbit. It's a pale butterscotch amber, sunlight filtered through a billion suspended dust particles. The gravity is 38% of Earth's. They feel light, dangerously light after months of weightlessness. The silence is geological, permanent. They are, at that moment, the most isolated human beings who have ever lived, farther from home than anyone in the 300,000 years history of our species. And they plant a flag, not because a flag matters, but because the moment demands a symbol, because humans are creatures who need to mark the places where everything changed. This will be one of those places. We've sent rovers, we've mapped the craters, we've tested the soil and sampled the air and watched the sunsets in real time from 140 million kilometers away. The only thing left is to go, and we will. The question isn't whether a human being will walk on Mars. The question is, who's going to be alive to watch it? If you think that's going to happen in your lifetime, drop a year in the comments. Let's see what this community believes. And if you want to understand exactly what comes after Mars, what terraforming actually requires, and how long it would take, that video is already waiting for you. Subscribe so you don't miss it, because that one is going to change how you see the future.